Welcome, Sojourners. You have found yourself a cozy place in Sojourners Awake. I'm Jonathan, and this is our production of Sojourner Spotlight, RPG news and interviews. And so for now, our story continues, and today we have with us
Patrick. I play Sterling in the current Bookish and the Brave, and I played Garindan Greybeard in the Avernus campaign.
When you designed Garindan, and then you designed Sterling, in what ways are they similar to you, and what ways are they different from you?
From me as a person?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, Garindan is a dwarf, and I sit at a healthy 6'2", so he's a lot different from me. But it was fun to play a lot of those jokes, the short people jokes, because of that. And me as a person, and his characteristics, like the caring nature of him, at the same time, always quick with a joke and camaraderie. That's me in a nutshell. But and the caring healer of always like, how's everyone doing? Just checking base. Hey, are you good? Are you good? And then the how he dealt with PTSD and shock is like kind of how I do it. I go to a song, think about it, like get through it. But yeah. Now Sterling, on the other hand, he's kind of a lot me when I was a lot more younger and naive, and so it's fun to go and retrace those steps and think of like, okay, how would an 18, 19-year-old, not very experienced in the world, very sheltered upbringing, that's not me per se, but how would he react to a lot of situations, which was fun to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how Sterling is very sheltered, and it surprised me. I never really know what to expect when you come up with characters, but I love how I'll posit a situation or a scene or an encounter, and then, well, of course, the situation that comes to mind is, when y'all defeated the books and all the authorities walked in, and I saw Sterling kind of raise up his hands and say, "We killed the books." It was just completely innocent and childlike, almost not realizing the gravity of the situation. That made me realize how young Sterling was.
Yeah, I mean, because it was just funny. His first mission as a book end was to end a book, so it was just like that little wordplay was like, I ended the book.
Wait, like, you did? You said that?
I did.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't catch that. Yeah, you ended the book.
It was hilarious to him because he wasn't sure 100% what a book end did, or he's like, I'm so excited to do this. I'm going to protect the books. And then the first thing we did is end a book, and it was just. Oh
gosh, that's why I love playing with you. Your wordplay is phenomenal. So, you should be proud of that, because a lot of D&D, I think, is playing with words, and creating pictures in our minds using words, and you do that so effectively. And one thing I love about the Bookish and the Brave, the rhythm we got going on, is, I don't know if it's your eyebrows going up, but it always seems like the other two know when to take a pause and allow you to give that one-liner.
So much so that Vaughn has to remind me that Sterling isn't a dad, so he doesn't get to use as many dad jokes.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
But he's practicing now. He's just getting it,
Well, we got to write that into the story. Maybe you have on your pocket like 101 dad jokes for every situation.
Nice.
Sterling's just carrying that around, resourcing from it.
I mean, he definitely uses his humor as kind of a de-escalation, kind of like okay, and also to create bonds with people, and so they just look at him and be like, okay, I get that. So
the encounter that you had with Sylvia in the beginning, to be honest, was completely improvisational. You said you wanted to go to the edge of the sea, or a parapet, or you wanted to go look at the ocean. And I thought that would be a good point to introduce a couple of the characters I'd, designed for that bald top scene. And Sylvia was one of them. And I love female elf characters. And without you and me discussing too much, here's some things that I've established that I think are true to elves. Number one, they're very alien. They are not from this plane of Bonsarel, nor is it their home, so to speak. So with elves, they are completely alien. They're not from this world. They're from a different plane of existence. And so I don't like them personally in my games to look like humans with pointy ears, albeit beautiful humans with pointy ears. I do like the idea that they have long ears, but long noses, long arms, very thin avian-like bodies. I've described their eyes as, very large and black, but also stretching across their temple, allowing them to be more perceptive in the way that some animals have eyes on the sides of their heads. And while they are very beautiful to look at, there's really no such thing as like a homely or ugly elf. Their voice is full of melody. Sometimes they give off just perfumes. And then you were introduced to Sylvia. And another feature of elves is because of their life in my world, they kind of live to be 200, 300 years old. They kind of view humans as pets because, you go through so many humans' lives and it can be kind of painful sometimes to let go of those humans. So you end up adopting the puppy of the pack, and then you adopt their puppies. And that's the kind of way she sees Sterling, this, pet project, some human she can invest in, her wisdom and beauty and charm and knowledge. And I think what Sylvia was most intrigued by was Sterling's innocence. He just doesn't seem like your average bald top knowledge seeker. So that was kind of my experience that we just didn't get to talk about during that scene. So what about you when you first met Sylvia and subsequently after? Like, what was it like for you as a character and for Sterling?
So for Sterling, when he first met Sylvia, he was actually trying to write a message to his the sea elves of Marantorn. So he was using his druidic craft to kind of get that out as that. So when Sylvia came up, he wasn't sure he was going to be like caught. And then once he had kind of established that she was an elf, and he grew up with sea elves, and they were cold towards him, hard. And here was somebody who was open, inquisitive, and just kind of like and actually like speaking to him. It was kind of a nice shock, and so much so that he knew how to act around her at the same time, kind of how to relate to her. And it was funny because a couple of the other cast members, I say, they thought that he was hitting on her, but he's young and he's innocent. He was totally just like, this is my job to protect, and I'll protect you. And it was funny and to kind of experience that as a player and as a like kind of looking at it like, no, he's 18, 19. He's not looking at this as some kind of relationship or what he can get out of it. He's literally just trying to make connections in this world. So,
well, yeah, and to pick up on that, it was also eloquent on your part. I mean, that, I kind of like grabbed my chest in that moment because I was like, wow, that was just the beautiful statement. I figured, Sylvia would definitely be intrigued by that, impressed. But namely, the thing that most, it's an attraction for sure, because she's like, no, I need to take care of this person. I need to make sure he's well fed. I need to water the plants, so it's, in other words, it's a very caretaking thing that these elves have towards humans. And I know you're a water Ganassi in the game, but you appear very much human, because I like my Ganassis to look human.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was thinking of doing like a blue or gray skin, but when we talked about it, it made a lot more sense for him to like lean more on the human side, especially as he was just adapting devotion and trying to fit in, being kind of undercover in a way.
Well, that's a good connection to the next question. I wanted you to talk about Boshin, and we didn't spend much time there. And I'm allowing you to talk about, maybe some things that you didn't get to do, or some questions you had, or some mysteries that were left unsolved. Because I hopefully applied enough pressure to move the adventure on out of Boshin into the Bald Top. And, you guys definitely took the hook and you decided this is the best thing to do. But what's unresolved in Boshin for Sterling, if anything at all?
So if anything for Boshin and Sterling, so it was kind of his first interaction into like above water living. And so he was very much like a kid in a candy shop and was wanting to take it all in, meet everybody. He never even went to, like, literally when he said, what is a steeple bottom? he had not made it as far as the noble quarters. He'd only seen the kind of the lower city, and he loved it because of the sights, the sounds, the smells, the people. Um, for Sterling, part of the quest is always to establish his, where he came from, his heritage, and he knows that he drifted to where he ended up eventually and was raised, but he's still trying to find out where his roots are. And as he's kind of drifted, most thing comes out of Ocean being a city, a port city. He thinks this is a place where he could find some of his heritage.
Interesting. Okay. This is his first experience, and he's thinking like, this is where I need to start exploring. Okay.
Because if anyone would know anything about his past, it's going to be in a major port city, being that he's, from the stories that he's been told of how he came to be in Marathon with the Seals. So
that is solid reasoning for sure. What do you like about playing a druid so far?
Oh man, they're so versatile. I liked in the beginning because this is my second dabble coming in a level 1 character. The first time as a level 1 was a bard, which was it was interesting to have that much ability and proficiencies. But as a druid now, the connection to the world around is completely different. Looking in from a cleric, as a cleric, my connection was to my deity. As a druid, I've got a connection to the sea, to the stars, to the land, to everything like that. And playing that part of it out has been a lot more fun. And the druid is just so versatile between the lower levels with hitting things, and then to eventually get to the spell casting, and what we've talked about with the raw magic of the universe is kind of getting more and more interesting as it kind of goes on.
Yeah, so what I imagine with the raw magic of the universe, I believe in what I've designed in the world of Bonsarl. The gods and goddesses are very much personas that manage property and events and things that go on throughout history. But even beyond that, there are powers that are nameless, that are unique, that are, the one power. And I like the idea that druids, in one way or the other, have gained access to this power. And that's kind of what I'm hoping you get to explore as you get closer and closer to that one source.
Yeah, you definitely made it more interesting with the portent ability, because it's like, hey, he's getting messages to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Move forward.
Yeah, so that's actually a good thing to mention. I imagine for anyone who might be thumbing through the rulebook and then listening to you play, wonder, how on earth are you able to get portent? Well, for all of you homebrewers out there, all I did was take the portent feature that it goes with the divination wizard, and I gave it to this spellcasting druid, Circle of the Stars, because I thought if you're paying attention to the stars, there's quite possible some way that you have divination magic. And so I said, here you go for it. Here, enjoy this portent feat. The other thing I did, of course, was give you access to all divination spells. And I can't wait to see how you bring those into the game. There are 2 other players and characters alongside with you. There's Vaughn, the human monk, and then there's Hawkins, the gnome battle master. Tell me about the relationships that you have with each of those fellows, and maybe something you need from them, something that you feel like you can give to them as a character, Sterling.
So they both came from high society. They're both well established in their houses, have all the correct. So did Sterling have all that, but from a different point of view. Sterling was very much an outsider looking in, whereas they were both Hawkins had to struggle to earn it a little bit and prove himself, whereas Vaughn was very much like he rebelled against it and went the other way. Well, rebelled is a strong word. He more so chose a different path. And so I think Sterling can kind of bring it together for his relationships. He looks at Vaughn as much like an older brother. He's a little bit in competition with, but at the same time, he's not as stubborn or bullheaded in a way. Or he's not as stone stand his ground in a way either. So he's a lot more flexible. With Hawkins, they're becoming more friendly. They have a really good rapport. They're like kind of cousins that get to laugh about everything and then like get to riff off each other as well. That's kind of the way that I see their relationship. Plus, he's never really interacted with a lot of humans, and definitely not with a lot of gnomes. But he's definitely enjoying the relationships there.
I guess it is quite an interesting image, imagining this large Samoan hulking man named Sterling, and then tiny Hawkins walking around. That's kind of funny to think about, but you know.
Yeah, but he definitely feels that kinship, but he needs to protect him a little bit as well. He's always giving him the heads up.
So we didn't really get to talk about this, but what are the features that you got from Bald Top Library in your year of study there? I want to make sure I knew what those were.
Absolutely. So for Sterling, what he did is he took the feat Resilient, which gave him Constitution proficiency in saving throws as well. Just for Druid, has a lot of concentration spells, and he, it really solidified it when the first encounter that I got, he died. It was like he's this big dude, but he was squishy, and he was just like, I need to get stronger, but not stronger in a physical sense, stronger in a mental and able to take more of a beating. And then the other two things he took was the proficiency in insight and perception. Because he, as I said, like a kid in a candy shop, he needs to be able to focus more. He's like being pulled in 6 different directions at any time because it's all new to him. That he really wanted to focus on what was going on with people. That's the insight side of it, and kind of like what are they thinking about, and then the perception more like what's going on, the bigger picture in the world. For him was the 2 proficiencies that he took, and that was the 7 points.
That's awesome. I am so proud of that moment. And you guys got to study at Bald Top and, pick up some cool features for your characters. So one of my, go ahead.
No, as Hawkins said, it's really easy to min max and think, okay, what's best for, the character. But the way that, that we do it at Sojourner's Wake, it's more about what's great for the story, what's going to help aid this along and move it along. Especially looking at all the different characters and classes as a unique kind of like, what are they strong at? I think wisdom for a druid was just like wisdom of the world. It was like, okay, this is going to progress the story.
Absolutely. I love that you think like that with me. Sojourner's Awake, what I've learned is very story focused in the D&D style, and I like it. I love the way it's going. I love the scenes I set up, and then you guys leap into the space with action and questioning and interacting with each other and engaging with the environment before I drop the hammer of whatever terrible thing is happening in the world. There's lots of setup. And I think that's what makes the good story. One really good scene, and it caught me off guard, and of course I laughed, hopefully not in the mic or anything, but I remember when y'all were in the wilderness and Traina was talking to y'all and said something about plants and about the herbs and you being a druid. And then Sterling looked inside his bag and said, he was thinking like, are these guys living? So whatever happened with that, like that's a year in the past, but what did Sterling make of all that?
So from whatever he knew from growing up under the sea, it was, he thought he had the world figured out, and then he arrives at Ocean and his world just gets rocked in many different ways. So now everything's up for grabs. And so, this tree's talking to us, it's like, there's a level of trust, at the same time, a level of distrust. And so when she was like herbs and, those creatures, and he was just really like trying to see past the real, I guess, it's because all these things have come to him in a way. He's just kind of like, okay, is there more? So when he was thinking of the herbs in his kit as something more than what he's used them for in the past, it was like, well, really? She seems to know what she's talking about. So
Well, it would be interesting to see Sterling take that to the next level because, being a druid, you have an innate connection to, like you said, the stars, the land, the sea. And of course, the spells lend itself to that as far as connecting with the natural world, the created world. What questions do you think you have?
I mean, of course, I always think of like, okay, big bad, right? Who's the bad guy? Obviously, we know, who's the big bad is in the Steel. We're still, and very much like in the bookends, we're kind of getting everything. It's like, hey, protect, and now we're learning that it can come from any direction, inside, outside. We thought it was just like protecting the outside, but as soon as we get there, it's like, okay, there is now outside, inside. It was, and then even more so when you set up with the ice storm and the methods they're able to get in. Of course, we weren't in Bold Top proper, but even then, you would think they would want to protect the outer courts and the court of the air. And so very much like he's, he knows where the good is, and he's just trying to figure out. And he's still, he's still dealing with the whole death thing, and kind of like, was there any recompense for that? It's like, how did he? Yeah, and that's what he kind of, when he was talking to Kellen, the gatekeeper, about, hey, do you owe anyone anything? Are you bringing in any baggage? Kind of was the vibe he was getting, and he was like, no, but at the same time, something inside him was like, yes, even unwritten. It was unwritten, unspoken, but he knew that there was a debt that needed to be paid somewhere. So even so much so that I was ready to roll a deception check.
Well, and you made a good case that, of course, you wouldn't know.
Right.
In your mind, you wouldn't know, so you would be answering truthfully. But yes, there is something latent, something dormant, which, of course, I love those themes.
Yes.
I think all the characters, Vaughn was so practical when it comes to the gods walking in and around, but I think Sterling, really got excited thinking about what does a god look like. And of course he saw the handsome blonde guy with the chiseled muscles and a sash, and he thought, well, you're a god, so he must have read some mythology books and got some picture influence. But if it's a hypothetical question, but if Sterling could meet a god at Bald Top, who would he meet? And what questions would he have?
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. So I'm thinking more like for him, it would be more of like who controls the day and the night, because obviously, he's more alive in the water, and he's more alive at night when the stars are out. So, if he could find a way, like solar eclipses and things like that, he would be like, that kind of thing. So obviously, we dealt with in Avernus with lavender and the light. We never really talked about the darkness and the night kind of thing. So I think he would enjoy that. And then of course there is always the aspect of, like the astronomy. It's like, dating back in our history to, okay, that's how people got around. That's how any exploration happened. That's how, anything in that kind of realm of thought is. He would like to that guidance side of it too.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, something cool would be to personify something like the North Star. Like this star is actually the person in charge of maintaining the signs in the sky and the seasons, and making sure sailors get to where they're going on time, and developing that kind of character. I would imagine would be, I don't know, it's something fun to play with, and I'm more excited to see how you three react whenever interacting with a deity. Because I know Hawkins has some plans for interacting with the gods already. He's told me that. So
nice.
Jumping on that ship.
Especially with I like the way you set up gnomes, is they shouldn't exist. That is so cool. Like they broke through. They're like the redheaded stepchild, and
yes, yeah, they did. They slipped past. They defied all the laws and rules and just showed up to the party. No one invited them. They weren't supposed to be here, but so they have that independent streak in them. It kind of runs through their lineage. So
very fey.
yeah, very fey. They're very fey. Well, anyway, that's about all I have. I would like to celebrate that we broke 2,000 listens at Sojourners Awake. So I do want to say hello to what I can see, at least right now, the top 4 listener states: Texas, California, Missouri, and Maryland. You're in the top 4. So I appreciate seeing y'all. And for everyone who's listening in different cities, it's good to know you're out there listening, and I hope that you're heavily rewarded by our storytelling. Every conversation must come to an end, so for now we conclude. But as always, may your story continue. Thank you for listening, Sojourners. Your attention will not go unrewarded. If you enjoyed this background music and ambiance, check out Tabletop Audio. Find them at www.tabletopaudio.com. For more articles on starting your very own Dungeons & Dragons campaign, visit www.sojournersawake.com. And as always, may your story continue.